antlers, assumptions, and artillery. They had insisted on following him to the appointment. He hadn't been able to talk them out of it. They wanted to know more about the defensive brand, and he had a hard time saying no to these women, but after this, they were more likely to listen. Are you sure want civvies to watch this? The nerd on duty asks as he sees Holly, Lils, Salis, Irma, and Vera walk up behind Bjorn. It's fine. They insisted, Bjorn says, and the nerd looks past him to the others. Right? Well, as you can all see, there's not exactly a big lineup to getting these things. I just finished the modifications for the next level. Would you like to know what it can do? I read the briefing, but take the girls through it. Bjorn says, and the nerd nods. Right? Well, these defensive brands have numerous abilities, as you all well know. The heavy resistance to heat, electricity, and the creation of a stable habitable environment around its user are all part and parcel with this protection. The thermal protection allows an undaunted soldier to outright ignore laser and plasma fire to a large degree, and the personal atmosphere allows us to move around in otherwise hostile environments without specialized equipment. We can keep moving underwater, in the void of space, or even in a toxic gas geyser going off, and we won't even smell the stink. This, in a general buffering effect that can blunt the impact of a long fall, allows undaunted soldiers with this brand to halo jump into hostile terrain on top of all the above goodies. The nerd explains at length, and Irma raises a hand. Yes? What's a halo jump? Human military term. It doesn't sound fully right in galactic trade as opposed to English, but it translates to a high-altitude, low-opening jump. It's a way to get into defended areas that have air control that will shoot down ships, usually using whatever devices that are there to stop you from splattering at the last possible moment. There isn't a single type of anti-air or flak in the galaxy that can reliably target a single individual falling, even one the size of a Lidris or Canador. So if there's a fortress we can't just land troops at nearby, or an area we can't land at all nearby, our soldiers can just open the airlock and jump if they have the brand. You can do that? Lils asks Bjorn, who nods. I can and have done that. I've practiced a few times by jumping out of the shuttle and practicing my fall until I can land nearly perfectly on the hypercrete. Although considering that I killed at least 3 tundra worms last time I failed to get onto the arcology platforms, it still felt like a win to fail that time. Bjorn remarks as he mentally is psyching himself up for what's about to happen. But enough about the basics. What's new to the brand? Nothing exciting. We just managed to figure out a trick that increases the effectiveness by over 22%. Granted, the over part is a long stream after the 22 for the fraction of the fraction, but I hate long division problems. They're messy, annoying, and never truly mean all that much more. No matter what the metallurgists and physicists scream at me, the nerd says. Although, that being said, we've noticed an interesting trick that soldiers have been doing out on the field. Something we're working on, but it'll be in the next iteration as we're trying to figure out how to do it without the brand ballooning in size. What's the trick? Spreading the protection of the brand to other people. It's a useful thing to have, especially for someone like you. But we can't seem to get it to work without nearly doubling its size. It's easy to do with a technique, but complicated as all hell to break down, so it actually works reliably, the nerd says. But still, 20% more until the protection starts to get overwhelmed is nothing to sneeze at. Is that really all, though? Holly asks. I mean, if it's supposed to hurt a lot, so is it really worth it for just an increase? Isn't it enough as it is now? For a lot of people it would be, but I'm not a normal person. I'm undaunted. This is going to hurt, but it will be worth it, Bjorn says, rolling up his t-shirt sleeve and placing his hand over the brand. When he removes it, the brand has faded. Now I have no brand and need a new one. Very well then. You know the drill. The room is soundproofed, so feel free to scream, the nerd says, and Bjorn nods as he opens the door the nerd is standing beside. The room is empty, but for a single device that holds up a chunk of Kutha that has the undaunted symbol on it. Bjorn takes a moment to adjust it, so it's at a specific height. Turns a toggle and waits as the Kutha heats. He then squats and begins psyching himself up to shoulder tackle the machine as the nerd closes the door. Why did... Salis asks, and then there is a massive bellow of pain from Bjorn. They rush the door, but as they get close to it, it seems to always be far away as the axiom begins to shift and move around them. Holly's antlers glow for a second, and the stretched space construct is burst with a shrug from the nerd. They open the door as Bjorn gets a lungful of air, and the bellow turns into a scream even as he pushes his shoulder into the searing hot brand. His every vein is standing on end. His entire body is clenched and he suddenly arches back. The machine moves with him and keeps the brand on his shoulder as he keeps pressing against it. His eyes are shut and screwed tight even as he starts to grab at his shirt, and without seeming to even notice, tears it off as he curls down. And then he suddenly falls away from the machine and falls to the ground bonelessly and sobs. He chokes on his tears for a bit as he tries to control his breathing and starts panting and slowly rises up, covered in a cold sweat that does not have the sexy smell to it. It smells like death is leaning over everyone's shoulder. He's exhausted, he's hurt, and he's struggling to even stand. Then the nerd leans into the door frame and lets out a whistle. Damn, you did good. I broke my teeth when I got it applied. I had to do some very fun healing effects after that, the nerd says. That's 'cause I'm not a pussy. Bjorn snaps at him in an exhausted tone. What the hell? Holly demands. Axiom brands hurt more than anything. Even we undaunted, some of the most stupidly tough bastards you'll ever meet, are driven to our knees and nearly half of us soil ourselves, the nerd says as he reaches into his vest and pulls out a brown bottle that he floats out to Bjorn, who grabs it, twists the cap off, and then starts drinking hard. I'll be fine. I need a minute or three, Bjorn mutters as he pants. He's not injured, girls, but he is hurt. Give him some time to sort his head and find his balance again. He'll be fine, the nerd says, and Bjorn tosses the bottle back to the nerd, who grabs it and then tosses another back. Bjorn swipes it out of the air and downs it as well. He stands up straight after that as he pants and then wipes his face with his hand before flicking away the sweat. That never gets easier, Bjorn says after a moment. No, but we do deal with it better each time, the nerd says, and Bjorn raises his beer in a toast to that. Anyone else rushing in on the first day? Oh yeah, a lot of people have the mindset that this is something that's best to just get over with, including one of our newest hires, the nerd says. Really? So, Bjorn begins to ask, and the nerd holds up a hand and slowly counts down from 5. Then he frowns and starts to look down the hall before everyone jumps at the sound of a woman screaming, coupled with chittering pincers. Damn, I didn't think she'd go for one, Bjorn mutters. You'd be surprised, the nerd says as Bjorn finishes off his second beer and tosses the bottle back to him. How are you? I think I'm back up to normal, although I need a little bit of me time to feel normal, Bjorn says. No one likes the pain sweat sticking to you, the nerd says. Right, so Bjorn says before rolling his neck, and it pops like gunfire. I'll stick around long enough to check on our newest friend. A friendly face after this hell is a huge help. May I suggest you grab your jacket first? You lost your shirt, the nerd says, and Bjorn looks around and actually notices he no longer has a shirt on. Oh, huh. I was hoping not to break something this time, Bjorn notes. It's a good way of dealing with it. I know at least 3 guys who bring bricks in with them, and they crush them as the brand is applied, the nerd says, and Bjorn brushes back his hair a bit, and it stays like that due to the sweat sticking to him. Right. Well, I'll do that then, Bjorn says. Come on, girls. I've gotten through this, but I think someone going through it the first time may need a hand up. He quickly gets his jacket, and soon enough, the entire small crowd is standing in front of the room where Mangowa is panting hard. Holly knocks on it. What? Mangowa snaps. You need someone? Holly asks. I know that voice. Holly clatterhooves. I was there when you were disciplining your daughter in the overstock store. I'm here with Sergeant Bjorn Veers, who just had his own brand applied. Holly introduces herself. Hey there. Hurts like a bitch, don't it? Bjorn calls out, and there's a clittering sound and a few staggered steps before the door is wrenched open and Mangowa staggers out. He catches her as she pants. Her prosthetic pincer pokes him in the head. Don't understate it that much, sweet goddess. I knew those things hurt, but... She gasps out. She then pushes back against his head with her robotic pincer and staggers up right to breathe while looking upwards. No wonder you humans are considered crazy. If you do things like that just to avoid having to wear personal shields, What would you do for something that's actually a problem? Well, Bjorn starts as he considers all the utterly insane stories he had heard from the other branches. He regularly hunts tundra worms for mild amusement. But compared to the giant monsters that the chainbreakers have dragged to civilization, the sheer insanity of the reports from the pirate stations or the dozens upon dozens of other branches heading out made his time as Holly's bodyguard seem placid and boring. We may have created black holes, waged wars, and more or less created a new primal. She stares at him for a bit and then snickers a little. Good. I'll need this kind of crazy strength if the stung will ever be something of worth again. Considering you charge Zords on foot, I think you got it already. Yes, but more is always nice, Mangowa says before stretching her tail. Assuming a Zord are those strange combining battle robots I faced. Yes, you ran smack dab into a children's show. Funniest thing I've seen in a long time. I'm sure it was. If you want the idea, then imagine me fighting against the hero of an action show designed for children and you'll get the general idea, he says, and she considers before smiling. I suppose seeing you get into a punch-up with Lady Light would be all sorts of amusing, Mangowa says after a bit. Who? Bjorn asks. Oh, it was the funniest show around for a while. It involved this light Aramenta called Lady Light, and she would always find some poor man in trouble somewhere, and she'd rescue them and then get a reward date before matching him up with a friend of hers. It all comes together at the end of the season when all the girls she got a guy for show up to help her out against a dangerous war lady. Vera exclaims, and Bjorn glances at her. I have a little sister. She loves the show and won't shut up about it.